Good evening. It's 6 p.m., so we're going to call the meeting to order. Becky, could you read the roll call, please?
Stephanie Mom.
Present.
Brian Davis.
Present.
Jessica Dressley.
Present.
Lisa Hadeen.
Here.
Mike Reese.
Here.
Carrie Tate.
Present.
Becky Weissel. Here.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to now stand. Please remove your caps for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First thing on the list is I need a motion to approve the agenda table file. I am going to make a motion before we get to the agenda that we remove the component having to do with the substitute teacher pay from the consent agenda and make a separate item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? It's shutting stuff off again. Just motion passes, Becky, so let's please move that to a separate item.
I would also like to make a motion to move a couple of things actually into the regular discussion, including the change orders, the bills payable, and the privacy improvements for full transparency and to ensure that everyone at the table has full understanding of those items.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of moving those items, say aye.
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 Let's signify by hand so I can see that everybody's in favor. Everybody's okay with that? All right, thank you. All those opposed? Doesn't look like anyone. That's fine. We'll move those. Thank you, Carrie.
Do we have a good list of what's being pulled out? So it's all the change orders and then the recommendations for the high school and the middle school.
Is that correct, Carrie?
And the bills payable.
And those things.
Just 2-minute check-in with that.
All right. So now we've reset the agenda. I need an approval of the minutes for the January 5th, 2021 school board organizational meeting.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Sorry, could I make a comment?
Absolutely.
A request. I understand that with the minutes, we are meeting the requirements for the minutes and the amount of details. I'm wondering if there would be any way possible that we could add just a bit more detail going forward, maybe not with the last ones, but I was just thinking, for example, last month, the discussion when we were talking about the newspaper, and there were a couple of comments made about why we wouldn't want to go with the journal, for example. When I look next year, when I look at the minutes to review what our discussion was, what the meeting was about, it would be very helpful just to have a couple extra notes about if there was discussion on a certain vote, what those comments were.
I can kind of comment on that too. So I think that having that discussion written out is good, but keep in mind that the minutes are published to the paper, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it by the word? We pay by the word?
We pay by the line, so the more information there is, the more expensive it gets when we publish our minutes. And by law, the minutes are defined as the action taken at the meeting. It is not meant to be a dictation or notes of what happened at the meeting.
Yep, understood. There is a comment in our policy, however, that says that there can be additional details. I'm just wondering if anyone would agree with that or if I'm on my own here.
I wonder if maybe we just have a further discussion, maybe at a work session,
Okay.
and figure out if there's another method that we can do that. And so just keeping the minutes as they are, but then, with our, our efforts to be more transparent, because I know we're going to be brainstorming a lot of things to make it better for the community and for us, so that there's a lot of communication. I'm open to a discussion further, okay. But I would like to keep the minutes as they are.
Okay.
And just so you know, they're all recorded. So if you can go back for years to remember what we talked about.
No offense, but I don't know that I want to rewatch every meeting.
You can pull bits and pieces too.
Carrie, I can't imagine why you don't want to watch these back. No, I don't have a problem with it either. I think we can find some vehicle to ensure that there's more detail available to the public if they should want it.
Okay.
I'm sure we can figure something out.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks again, Carrie. That being completed, is there a motion, again, is there a motion to approve, or are we looking for a second right now on the minutes from the January 5th meeting? Yeah, okay, seconded. So all those in favor now? Say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Recognition of visitors today.
All right, so I would like to recognize tonight our employees of the semester. So for the public, twice a year, staff across the district have the ability to nominate their colleagues on the contributions that they make to our organization. A committee then works through those nominations and selects employees to be recognized. So our Raider employees of first semester are, and I believe we have almost all of them here, so if they could stand and come up to the front table when I read their name. Bruce Kummer, he's a custodian at Pinecrest. Kim Sill, she works in our welcome desk, copy center, and for food service at the district office. Jessica Pettit, she works at the welcome desk, copy center at the district office. Michaela Larson is a nurse at Pinecrest. Mike Johnson, principal at the high school. Mindy Tavernier, assistant principal at the middle school. And Suzanne Copland, nurse at the middle school. So again, congratulations to our employees of the semester. In the spring, we do this again, and then the employees of the semester go into the final round to see who will be our employee of the year. So school board, I present our employees of the semester. If you have any questions, comments for those that are here.
I first of all, congratulations. I want to thank each and every one of you for all your work. I know it's been a daunting period of time here over the last couple of years, so I can certainly appreciate what it is that you guys are dealing with on a daily basis. So thank you very much for everything you're doing. Congratulations again. So we are moving to, I'm just getting used to our new funky Chromebook here. Announcements and recognitions.
Oh, I think I did that in reverse.
You kind of did that in reverse, yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I jumped the gun on you. I got excited.
You kind of did. Okay, that's all right. I would like to welcome everybody, first of all, watching on TV at home and getting this information. And thank you for participating in our school board process and being involved. I would encourage you to continue to watch and view. And thank you for everyone that is here present tonight in terms of being here as well. Again, it is the best thing in the world to have folks show up, exercising your public right to be at these meetings and to witness what is going on and make it part of the learning process for the overall things that we do here at the school district. So thank you all for being here. Now we move to items for discussion. We're starting with policies. Policies, and we have a second reading on policy 613, the graduation requirements.
So at the last board meeting, we read through did a first reading on the graduation requirements based on the budget adjustments that were made in December. And so this one's up for second reading. And in working with board members, one thing we want to point out is if you go to section 5, graduation requirements, what is not going to be changed in this is the fact that there'll be 44 requirements, 44 credits for graduation. What does change, however, is section 5B, number 5, and number 7, where the actual 4 credits for physical education and health reduces to 3, and then the minimum of 10 elective course credits bumps up to 11 so that we net out at a 44. And the reason for this is that students can take a total of 14 credits per year. So a full year class is 1 credit. And so with HP 10 being a full year credit, or a full year, that equals 1 credit. And so the change needs to be in increments of 1 to make everything jive at this point. Did I hit that, Jessica?
I think I believe it's per semester, so they get 1 credit per semester.
1 per semester? Did I get that wrong? They're all nodding yes.
So, just to pile on, so 5 moves to 3.5. HP 10 is a 0.5 credit, and that's what's being removed. So that used to be 4, and then I would presume bullet line, I don't know,
But that'd
line
be
item
10
number
and a half.
7 would be 10.5.
All right, that wasn't the information I had, but. Mike, do you want to, since you're here?
Because he's the employee of the semester, he can respond on no.
So a year-long class is 2 credits. So if we have a semester of human performance in grade 9, a semester of human performance in grade 10, health 9, health 10, that's 4 credits. So by taking away the requirement of HP 10, we're at 3 credits. Then we're up to 11 for elective credits, total of 44. So we don't have any 0.5 credits.
So I had the numbers right. I explained it incorrectly.
It's okay.
Yay.
4-3.
Thank you, Mike. And thanks for being on top of that, Jessica. I appreciate it.
The only other thing I want to point out about this, just so that there's clarity, is the plan right now is just to adjust the credits for the change, but this policy will be one of those policies that the policy committee takes on as we move forward with other additional needed changes, and so we'll work through it.
Lisa, were you just moving your mic closer?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Are there any additional questions with regards to policy 613? Okay, is there a motion to move 613? 613 can be moved to an action item for vote tonight, if there's a motion to do so.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of moving it to an action item, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We're now going to move to a discussion around resolutions, rules, and policies. This is an opportunity for our board, which, by the way, just so you guys know, we are obviously a new board. And it doesn't matter whether we've been here 2 years or we've been here 2 weeks. We're all a new board, and we're in the process of learning to work together and work as a cohesive unit to make sure we're delivering everything we possibly can to this district. So bear with us while we're doing that. And one of the things in that process is understanding how the resolutions, rules, and policies work. And it's a great thing actually for you, the public, both on TV here in the auditorium or the audience to hear as well. So that being said, we will move the resolutions, rules, and policies. Do you want to pick that up, Director McDowell, and start the conversation? Or do we just turn over to Director Reese?
Yeah, I'd open it up.
Okay.
So I know that I've been going back and forth with both Bob and Brian about the rules and regulations for resolutions and stuff, and Bob has reached out to legal to get some advice. I would have sent this, but I got this late last night, so I'll just pass this out. It's directly from Terry at MSBA, and I'll read this for the public too, so I'll just pass these down. There should be a again, it was just too late for me to send this out, but in here, if I specifically had asked Terry, which is a lawyer for MSBA, so the Minnesota State Board, if If you go to the second page is where my question is. I blacked out some other stuff just to keep it on topic. I said, another question is, can a policy/resolution be made that gives the superintendent powers to change policy or resolution without consulting the board or requiring board approval? And his response is, a resolution may authorize a superintendent or other employee to make decisions and take actions. The degree of latitude might not constitute a change of the resolution. The resolution's text cannot be changed without board action. Again, this is directly from a lawyer at MSBA that advised on this. I got this yesterday evening. Haven't had a chance to really send that out, so I wanted to discuss that because of the resolutions that we have that aren't quite policies, which include the health one, the board book, and then I believe there was another one, and I can't recall what it was.
Okay, Mike, just so I know, Director Reese, specific to those resolutions, can you just give just a little bit more information in terms of, at least, let's draw an example of one of them. Let's start there.
Sure. We'll just, the first one that I'm aware of is the health and mask mandate one that was passed on, I want to say, August 25th. There was later changes. More recently, the changes were the CDC guidelines, changing it from 10 days to 5 days. According to Terry at MSBA, that would require board approval to be changed, and it wasn't, so that actually would invalidate that. And any changes, and there have been several after the original one was posted on August 25th, so all of those actual changes, according to the lawyer at MSBA again, are nullified because they did not require board action, and we can't just give permission to somebody else. We can't make a policy that overwrites a law.
Understood we can't make a policy, but a resolution, depending on how the resolution is written, we can give latitude for certain changes to be made to the superintendent. He can have some latitude to make certain changes so that we're not meeting every 30 seconds to try to make changes.
I understand that, but it specifically says, and I'll quote, the resolution's text cannot be changed without board action. It says it blatant right here, directly from it. You also have policy, if I recall, is policy 208, which also says that you can't discuss and approve meetings or policies and resolutions that same day. When there's public input, that was the last time we had that public input amongst the board, and then that resolution was passed. But according, again, to the lawyer, which is the subject matter expert and the person that we have been advised to reach out to, specifically stated that that was not legal.
I just want to clarify, you're talking about the safe return to learning?
Yes, any actual resolution. And so my thought is we don't actually have any resolutions. We just make them a policy. Because there's some confusion here. I get it. I understand why there would be some confusion on this, but just because that was done doesn't mean that we can. So although we may have done that before, that doesn't mean that it was right. And then again, according to his specific verbatim, it says that we can't do that. We cannot change the text without board action.
The only thing I'm trying to clarify here, Director Reese, is I'm just trying to understand where the text of the resolution was changed.
Oh, it was changed many times. If you look at it, singing was added, I believe, shortly after the August 25th. Again, the quarantine days, those were changed, didn't get board approval, no action, nor was it discussed at all. I agree that it should be that 5 days, or to be honest, really none, but that's not what we're debating here, is more of the legality of the changes weren't actually legal to begin with. So any changes, including the fact that in that resolution it gave Bob that permission to make those changes, it invalidates it. You can't make a policy that invalidates the law, and the law specifically says it can't be changed without board action.
Yes, go ahead, Bob.
So a couple things. First of all, my understanding in talking with Terry Morrow and MSBA is they do not provide legal advice. They recommend that you go to your own attorneys for that. Secondly, to just address the idea of just to start by addressing the idea of making changes to the text, if you go to the website, what we've done there is we've included the original resolution. It's point 6 in there, which is the resolution that it was passed as it was when we first did it, for that very reason. Point 1 there is the health and safety measures that tracks any of the additional health things so that people know what exactly is meant. And so we've kept the original resolution there. The third piece is section 2 that I've referred to several times in this, has been approved by our attorneys. And actually was written by our attorneys for the purpose of doing this, to which, according to our attorneys, it can. Now, that said, I can just tell you what our attorney said. The board as a whole can make whatever decision they want. The board as a whole can change the resolution. The board as a whole can keep a resolution. That's not my call to make. The only thing I can tell you is we are not the only district that has passed this resolution with a section 2 in it. And according to legal, as long as the resolution has an option for notification of the board as a whole and an option for the board to come back and say, no, we don't agree with that anymore, we want to take action so it doesn't happen, then section 2 can be a valid piece where the superintendent or whoever the designee is can make changes and adjustments to the resolution as pointed out in section 2 of our resolution.
But it also does say upon a board approval. I don't have the exact thing in front of me, but just because you did it before doesn't mean that it is valid. And although he might not give legal advice, I have the text, the email directly from him sent to me. I read my question where I specifically asked, can the superintendent be given powers? Yes, they can. So you can make changes to say, okay, we're moving from masking just in the elementary to now middle school and high school, because that doesn't constitute an actual change of the resolution. But, and again, and I'll quote, the resolution's text cannot be changed without board action. Regardless if you had that legal advice from the law firm, whichever law firm that might be, we're getting conflicting information. And this is a real big legal issue then in my eyes, because we possibly have all these, we're not calling them policies or resolutions, but you can't make a policy that violates the law. So if the law says you can't do this, you can't just make a policy that says, yeah, we can. It doesn't matter. That's not how the law works.
Well, I would recommend at this point that the board direct us to, again, give the policy back to our attorney and give a written response to it. The only question I would have, Mike, is did you share with Terry our exact resolution in whole?
I did specifically tell him about that, and
Did you share the resolution with him in its entirety when asking the question?
I said, can a policy be made that gives the superintendent powers to change the policy resolution without consulting the board or requiring board approval? And again, his response was, the resolution's text cannot be changed without board action. We were not consulted about the CDC changes. We were not advised. No one reached out to us. And in fact, we actually had to have some different conversations with not just us, but as well as parents, because you had changed it for staff from 5 days to 10 days to follow the CDC guidelines, but you didn't change it for students until like 3 days later based on the recommendation by MDE. So it's kind of a two-part thing is that our staff then only abiding by what CDC says? So if the CDC says it's 3 days, say tomorrow, do we change to 3 days but still keep the students at 5? That's where it goes into the problem of we're having this conflicting information. We need to make sure everything is accurate across the board. The board is the one that makes the policies and stuff. You can make recommendations, but according to this, you cannot make changes without board action. There was no board action, therefore it would, according to legal, nullify it.
So I'll just ask this a different way.
Oh, you're on.
With the attorney you consulted, did you read this section? The superintendent is hereby authorized after consultation with the board chair and notification to the school board to select and implement different health and safety measures for the school district or any specific school buildings without school board action if the superintendent believes that prompt implementation and different health and safety measures is necessary, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Did you read that section for the attorney?
Does it say upon board approval or anything on that? Can you finish reading that, et cetera?
It says, and that the constraints of time and public health considerations rendered impractical to hold a school board meeting to approve the implementation. Therefore, meaning that it does not require school board approval. And the only reason I'm asking is it's important to me to know that when I go to our attorney, exactly what you shared with Terry Morrow. And that will be the question that I have for Terry Morrow when I ask him tomorrow, because that impacts the decision that he gave you. If he did not have all of the information, including the full resolution as written, that could change what he gave as a response.
I don't see how that would apply, because I specifically said, can you give a superintendent authority to make a policy or a change? And he says no. I mean, it's very clear right here that he says no, it can't be done. I don't know what else to tell you there. I mean, you have the email. The stuff that's blacked out is not relevant to this particular item. Again, that's why that's blacked out. But I specifically asked, can you give the powers? If we can make policy that changes or allows us to violate a law, then why not make a policy that says the state of Minnesota has to give the pay entirely for Hastings district? Why wouldn't we want to make that policy then? Why wouldn't we just say, okay, we're going to make a policy that says the state of Minnesota is going to give us $100 million a year? We can't, because it would be against the law, much like this. You can't make a policy, no matter how hard you try, a resolution, whatever you want to call it, that violates the law.
And I would agree that we definitely can't violate state law. Here's what I'd like to do, because we can have a tennis match here, and I really don't want to. But what I will do is I, as the chair, will go back to Terry, and I'll bring him the resolution. I'll let him read it in its entirety, and I'll let him weigh in on it. And then subsequent to that, we can have our attorneys weigh in on it as well, see where that falls out. And also to that point, though, in addition to doing that, we can always, again, look at how we want to approach things as a board. We can remove resolutions. We can, the policy committee has got the work they can do. We can do different things, because that's up to the will of what we want to do. And then Superintendent McDowell will carry forth whatever we put out in front of him. He will carry it forward. So I would like to check that with Mr. Morrow. And see, get him to weigh in on that, because that's just more of, it's a curiosity. I'd like to know for sure, hearing from both sides. And then, in addition to, I understand that, Mike, but I want him to see the whole resolution. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I get that, but I specifically asked, can you make a policy? I mean, I know I'm repeating myself over and over, so it doesn't matter what it was approved. It doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. The fact is, you can't make a policy that changes the resolution's text. Quote, the resolution's text cannot be changed without board action. So even the fact that you gave that permission doesn't make it legal.
And no, and I'm hearing you. What I'm saying is, I'm hearing you. 1 second, Lisa. I'm hearing you. All I'm saying is, I want to run the entire resolution by him, let him look at it, and then we'll move forward from there. And again, going forward, we can do anything we want as a board with a majority vote. I don't mean anything we want illegally. I'm saying we can do anything we want as a board if we want to pull those resolutions back, if we want to change the way the policies are written. Those things we can do as long as they're within the confines of what you are describing there. I'm not disagreeing with you at all, Director Reese. I'm saying that I want to fully vet it, and then going forward, if we say, you know what, we're not going to do resolutions anymore. We have to meet a couple of times a week. That's what we're going to do. I have no issue with having those conversations and having conversation around it. I'm just saying that I'm asking to be allowed to just provide it to Mr. Morrow, vet the whole thing in its entirety to make sure the full context is there, and then we can move it forward from there in terms of everything we do, not just on this particular piece. I'm hearing you. I am hearing it. I want to make sure that we're within absolutely the confines of what we're supposed to be doing. I just want to make sure that I'm fully vetting it while we're doing that. And I'm sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
Thank you. A couple things that I'd like to weigh in on. First, to reiterate Superintendent McDowell's point, and it's very accurate because I went to a session with Terry Morrow at the MSBA conference on open meeting law, which is not related to this resolution. And he very clearly said, in response to every question, I don't carry malpractice insurance. I am not giving you legal advice. I'm just, he gave advice. It is not legal advice. He doesn't carry malpractice insurance. And he indicated also, you should always check and get the legal opinion from your district's attorney, who we approved last week. So while it may be interesting to hear Mr. Morrow's response to reading our actual complete resolution, I would support going and getting a written response from the legal team that we have hired as a district to review the work that we do. I will express that I'm concerned about this because we already involved them in developing the resolution. We paid for their time in the development, and now we're going to pay for their time again, which I don't think is a very efficient or effective way to operate as a board. But to resolve this question, and I do think questions around rules, resolutions, and policies, the use of the language is very important, and it's not clear to say, or policies or resolutions or whatever. I think we have to be really careful and slow in our language and articulate ourselves clearly. So that's, I would support it, but I do have reservations about spending money on something we've already spent money on.
I just don't understand why it's clear that the policy that was passed said we are going to give the superintendent permission. I have conflicting information from the state attorney that says otherwise. Now, even if you say he's not giving legal advice, I don't know how else to explain or show. I mean, here's the exact email that says my question that I've stated multiple times now, but I've specifically asked for that. So even if you're saying that we can then give anybody permission to do anything. So we could say, we could make up a policy for anything because.
To be clear, I did not say that.
That's what I'm trying to clarify.
I am not saying that. I am trying to resolve this conversation. I'm expressing concern that we received legal advice in building this resolution, and you're asking us to receive additional legal advice and pay for it, so that will happen to resolve your concerns. I'm not sure how to be clearer about the MSBA's role. He is the director of legal and policy services. He has a law degree, but he is acting as the MSBA's director of legal and policy services. So now we go and we should get legal advice from people that are carrying malpractice insurance with that role. We can learn nothing more by repeating ourselves tonight. We can get written responses.
But I'm not getting those. The only thing I'm hearing is we're going to check with our attorneys. That doesn't.
No, we're going to, I told you, Director Reese, I promise you, I am going to take this resolution to Terry Morrow tomorrow. I am going to bring him the entire resolution to him.
Can you copy me on that?
Can I copy on that? I believe I can. Yeah. Yeah, but make sure that nobody replies though, okay? But I will do that. I'll copy the whole entire board. Nobody reply all, please, because that would create a serial meeting. But I will indeed do that, and we will all be able to see the response.
So then just to further elaborate, if he does come back and reiterates what I said, are you saying then that would make that invalid?
If he reiterates what you said, and then I bring it over to our attorneys, and they're like, oh, he's got a point, absolutely.
And if he doesn't?
And if he doesn't
validate it, then it's dead.
Well, no. If Mr. Morrow comes back and says, "Oh, wait a minute, this resolution is fine" or whatever, then it's not. That point would be dead because the resolution would be fine according to him and according to our attorneys. But again, as I said before, I am more than willing to look at going forward how the resolutions are written, what we're doing in terms of our policies, because again, we are a unit. We're a new unit, and we may operate differently, and that's okay, as long as we're working within a democratic process where we have our votes and the whole 9 yards. I have no problem, no issue with that whatsoever.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up this concern, Director Reese. I think it's important to discuss, and it's all a learning experience for us. I just want to clarify that, it's important that our licensed attorneys, a licensed attorney, interprets the law accordingly.
Yes, he is.
He is not providing advice, which there is a big difference. Now,
You
I
said
understand
licensed attorney, and he is a licensed attorney, so.
who does not provide license or does not provide advice to us. He is providing a legal interpretation potentially, but that is something that we need to talk to our attorneys about. From my understanding, do you work in law?
No.
Okay, so let's leave it up to the legal professionals to decide this. And I think it's important that we have this discussion about, in particular, the health and safety policy. I think it's really important that we discuss that very soon. So thank you for bringing that up.
I'm sorry.
Just as an administrative note to Director Reese and for everybody too, it is entirely appropriate, even if you receive last minute information, to send it to Superintendent McDowell and to Brian.
I just didn't have the time, so that's.
And that's absolutely fine. I just want to make sure that I'm being as clear as humanly possible here. Director Reese and everyone, I want to get this right. Okay? I want to make sure this is right, but my way of getting it right is to fully vet every possible angle to make sure that there's nothing to come back later and say, well, this person, let's make sure that we're all on the same page. I absolutely want to get this right, and I'm more than willing to work to make sure that happens. I just want to make sure that we're walking through the appropriate process. I'm fine with the fact that you raised it. And to Director Mom's point, I'm happy these things get raised because that way we can have conversations, we clear the air, and then we're able to move forward as a unit. Because if there's anything hanging out there in the backdrop that there's a disagreement about or we're not synced up, that could create problems. So I want to make sure that we're there. And I'm committing to making sure that I fully vet this and ensure that the entire board is copied on that note.
While we're on the subject, can we just get some clarity around when we would, why we would use a resolution versus a policy?
Yeah, unless you want to. So, not to go back to it, but as our attorneys will always tell us, there's tons of gray area and everything. Nothing's absolute. But as a general rule, rules are things that the board might put into place that are more simple in nature and might be temporary. A perfect example of that would be we have a rule on the moratorium on international travel right now. It's something that we revisit every 6 months, but the board as a whole made a rule and said, normally we allow travel, but for right now we're not doing it. So that's kind of an idea of a rule. A resolution is a much more complicated and detailed rule that potentially is longer standing and is put into writing mostly because of the complexity inside of the resolution. Typically, it's something that the board then either reads or memorializes in a larger document, can take a roll call vote on, but it sets a tone for something. And the health and safety measures is just one version of that. The board also does resolutions. For example, when you were seated as new board members, the board takes on a resolution to seat new board members. It memorializes that larger act, puts it in writing so there's no question about what is intended. And then policies are standing. Right, so we have standing policies as a general rule. So these are things that are actually set out in policy to go through a process. They are sent to a policy committee, they are adopted, they are reviewed, they are amended by board action. And then in addition to policies, there are things, they go under different terms depending upon the district, but administrative procedures. Those are the ways in which the administration then acts out certain parts of certain policies based on what the board wants to do. Now, given the policy, there can be a lot of clarity with the administrative procedure, and given the policy, there can be a lot of unclarity with a administrative procedure, and that just depends upon really how much time is spent working through policies over time.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes.
So I expect, the policy committee, as always, will be busy doing different things, looking at different pieces, which is something they always do. I appreciate the conversation. I sincerely mean that. The only way we get better is by having these conversations and keeping them open and hearing everybody's perspective and point of view. And I appreciate the respectful manner in which it was handled. This will not be the last time that we don't all agree on something, but that's okay. That's all right, because we will circle back and we will figure it out as a unit. I'm sorry, Mike, please.
I was thinking, I don't know if it would be beneficial then to look at MSBA and have them do maybe an audit of our policies. They can do that. They can audit. I don't remember the costs. I don't know if you guys remember it from our meetings that we had with the MSBA. They go over and they offer an ability to have them audit our policies, and they'll review them for legal and validation and stuff, because I'm also concerned that there was that the previous board had passed some things that don't follow what the law says, and we don't have to get into all the details. I just think that it would be best if we had in theory, a third party review them to ensure the legality of it all.
One of the things, the large majority of what we do is almost boilerplate language from SBA for the most part. One of the things I will say is I will direct the policy committee, which Stephanie chairs. I will direct the policy committee to take a look at that idea of an audit being done, and they can come back to us with a recommendation as what they'd like us to do based on that. But I have no problem having them take a look at it. Steph, can you make a note of that? And having a look at it. So I will direct them to take a look at the possibility of doing that. Thank you for that as well. Again, I do appreciate that conversation quite a bit. If there is nothing else, I'd like to move to asynchronous learning days. Yes, Lisa.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but it looks like a number of the items that you raised, Carrie, to be removed from the consent agenda got moved to items for discussion. And I think really they maybe should have been items for action, individual action.
Yes.
Rather than discussion. So that asynchronous learning change orders, they're still action items, so they should be in the action piece, not the
Yes, the only thing,
item for discussion.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Tate, but your intent was to pull them out so we could discuss them specifically as opposed to just saying, hey, here's the whole consent agenda.
Correct.
Okay, so yes, so they should still be under action items then, and we will pull them and talk about them one by one. Yes.
And I now realize that I was probably one item early, because I think asynchronous was maybe...
No, asynchronous was not one of them.
Was not one of them. But I now that I scroll down, I see change orders and stuff should really be an action item, not in discussion.
Yeah, so we're good there.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No worries.
Head of the gun.
No worries. Okay, so let's talk about asynchronous learning days, please.
As an administration, we'd like to entertain the conversation about putting into asynchronous learning days as we move into the spring. We've had several conversations with staff over the past months. We have a staff group that has met a couple times called Quality Steering Committee, I'll talk a little bit about later, that provides input, and we try to provide problem solving and solutions to that. And in our conversations with both administration and teachers, the one main topic that's come up that has really been something that teachers don't feel that there's enough of right now is just time. Time being able to be at work when you're not teaching all day, your prep's getting eaten up because you're covering a class. And so as a way to be responsive to this, administratively, one thing we looked at in the calendar was, is there a way that we could figure out to spread out 2 asynchronous learning days, meaning that kids would be home on those days. Teachers would provide them with asynchronous learning opportunities, and that would provide the teacher to be in at work, available if kids needed help, but essentially being able to work on what they wanted to work on during the workday and not have a classroom full of kids or running online classes all day long. So the reason it's here is if the board so chooses to take this on, is that it technically would be a change to the calendar, and the board needs to approve changes to the calendar. So that's why I'm bringing it forward this way, is so that we can start it with that discussion, and the board really can obviously then decide what you would like to do with it. We're proposing, and the calendar's in there, we're proposing February 18th as the first day and May 9th as the second day. February 18th is the Friday going into President's Day weekend, so that Monday's off, or that following Monday's off, the 21st. And then the reason for May, the May 9th date, is we're trying to figure out a time that works in between all of the spring testing that happens that's not going to get in the middle of testing. And so in working with the principals at the secondary level and the elementary level, the 9th worked out to be a day that would be as minimally intrusive as possible, if there is such a thing at that time of year. And you'll also notice on the calendar, May is a month where there isn't really a break at this point, so it divides it up. With that, I would open it up for board discussion and then the opportunity, if you so choose, to move it to an action item.
Yes, Lisa.
Oh, sorry, yes, I was on that whole time. God, I'm not even red-green colorblind. It still didn't catch my eye. I would point out I've been able to participate in the coffee and conversations with MSBA on Friday mornings, which are lovely. Not for the coffee, but for the conversation, because you can kind of hear what other districts are doing. This is a common approach that we talked about that districts are taking, both to acknowledge the lack of time that exists in a staff's day. And actually something like an asynchronous learning day kind of reaches out to some of the other staff, some of the paras and the custodial staff, and like the way their day looks is a little bit different and can support them taking on bigger things. So this is a common approach, and I'm definitely happy to see us considering it and would support moving it to an action item.
If there's an opportunity for the teachers to be able to catch their breath while we're still able to get lessons to the kids on those days so they can continue to work on things, an opportunity to catch their breath with all the craziness that's been going on is always a good thing. So I would say I would support it as well, as long as we know that the kids are getting that work at home and they have a resource to go to if they should need help on that given day. I'd be supportive of it as well.
The only concern that I really have, well, first of all, I think they probably need more days, to say the least, given our current climate. So this I think is definitely warranted, is that February 18th is closely approaching. So if this is going to happen, we need to make sure that we are very diligent in communicating with our families, because there are going to be childcare constraints. So I want to make sure that, that's my biggest concern, is that, it's a quick turnaround for parents to figure out what to do with their child.
So we want to make the kids not be in school even more.
Do you understand what
Absolutely.
this is? Okay.
Absolutely. But I thought the kids were the heart of all we do, and I definitely do not think that the out of school in the distant learning is anywhere near the same as in-person learning.
Can I? No, and thank you for that comment. I think it's important. You brought up that kids are at the heart of all we do. Part of that is supporting our teachers who care deeply about our children.
I'm not saying they don't care in any way. I'm just saying that the students need to be in class, in person. I don't know why more days would be needed. I mean, I understand they're busy. Everybody's busy because of COVID. We can't really utilize that as excuses anymore. The whole world is. We've been to year 3 of it.
I think it really will benefit our students. Our teachers are working above and beyond their FTEs. They're subbing in classes with 30, 40 kids. They're taking on extra roles with their not normally doing. So they're not getting their prep time to actually teach our children in the classrooms. If we give them an extra day, our kids will still have work to do at home. And it's up to the parents and whoever's at home with the kids to make sure that they're doing that work. But it also helps the kids, I think, benefit the kids in the long run, because the teachers are finally delegating a day to make up their lesson plans, grade some papers, do their actual job instead of doing 12 jobs. I mean, we have directors serving lunches. We've shifted so many things around this year, and I'm appreciative of that, but I do think it's really benefiting our children to let the teachers take a day, gather information, find a different learning plan, whatever they need to do to benefit these children. And I think one day at home on a computer is good, as long as they're getting that week or that next month and a half, 2 months, that the teachers have a reset button and they have their lessons planned out instead of at night, 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, coming in exhausted and not really adequately teaching. I shouldn't say adequately teaching, but when you're tired, you don't do your best.
The one thing I do want to point out, because Retrice, I see where you're going. The one thing I want to point out is there's a huge difference between a day where the kids get some homework done and they reset, and a run where it's every single day is at home for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. I hear you on that. And we have worked diligently, the teachers have worked diligently, administration, to keep that from happening. It's been happening in other places, and we have done, I think, a really good job of keeping these kids in the classroom, regardless of we would really work hard at it. And I think that if it's a day, and there's work to be done, and it's a Friday of all things, that's an opportunity for the reset, as opposed to, I hear you loud and clear on, weeks on end of distance learning. I completely agree with you, and that's what we've managed to avoid thus far.
I'm going to be honest, I'm on the fence about this. And I'm not saying that I don't think teachers work hard, and it's amazing what they've managed to do in the last couple of years. My concern is the perception by the parents. I've seen a lot of emails. I've had a lot of conversations with parents who have been frustrated because their healthy children have been quarantined at home, and they don't feel that they've gotten a quality experience, at least while they were at home. Of course, the different story when they're in person, and there's so many kids who learn so much better when they're in person. That's just my concern, because we have had a lot of healthy kids who have been quarantined and who haven't had that quality experience. So I'm just concerned about adding more days to them being home.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think Jessica we haven't heard from, and then
Yes,
there's still, you're kind of working your way around.
I'll work my way around, yes.
Do we need to do we vote to move it to an action item? I don't know how I've lost track of this.
We vote to move it to an action item.
That's just a process question.
Which is why we vote to move it to an action item, and that's why I'm moving through, and I want to hear everybody's, and then we will move to the vote, and we'll see where that vote goes, but I want to make sure we heard from everyone.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just was getting lost in the process. Thank you.
Yep. So Lisa, does that mean you don't have anything else to say? Okay. Jessica.
Got nothing.
So I agree the teachers definitely need this day to prep, because they've been losing so much prep time, and I've heard that from numerous people, and students included, that teachers aren't prepared because they're doing other things during this time. But I also agree that students being out of class isn't the best idea. Are they going to have their schedule still where they go to each, or is it just going to be, these are the assignments, get them done when you can during that day? Is that what the idea is with an asynchronous day?
Yeah, the asynchronous day would mean there wouldn't be any direct instruction. The way that we've done asynchronous in the past is teachers have had times during the day where they've been available if students have questions.
Go ahead.
So if we're looking at February 18th and what was it, May 6th?
Was it May 9th?
May 9th.
May 9th.
May 9th, okay.
Sorry, May 9th.
Thank you, writing that down. For those students that need meals, are we going to provide that to them the day before, is that an option?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Jessica.
Is childcare still going to be available for those families who normally have childcare on the days off, like?
Yes, so we would set that up as a full-day childcare day at each of the elementary schools.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Just throwing this out there, isn't an option to compromise to 1 day instead of 2?
Again, kind of per our conversations earlier, we can do anything that we'd like to do. If we want to make it 1, then we'd move it. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. We would change it to 1 day, and we'd move it over to an action item as that 1 day, or we'd move it over the whole thing and change it then. We'd have to do it earlier on. It's a change.
There's nothing as a motion right now, so you could make the motion be whatever you wanted, or you could slide it over as written.
Correct. Got it. Do you have anything else, Steph? I couldn't tell if you're going for your mic. You're tapping. Okay, you're tapping your screen. Okay. So we're at a position now where we can vote to move it as is, or we can take a motion and see where it goes to change the days, the number of days, so on and so forth. That all depends on where we want to go with it. Carrie, if you want to make a formal motion to make it 1 day versus 2, you certainly can do that. And then we can vote through that. And then depending on where that goes, we can go to the next vote, which would be the 2 days.
I'm thinking about it more. I think you actually, because we approved the agenda as is, I think you need to move it as written and then amend it.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you'd be moving, because it's in the agenda as it's written, so you'd move it as written to an action item as written, and then knowing that you're going to amend it once it's an action item, and then it keeps it, it's the same thing inside of the agenda.
What I would like to do is, it would be good to move it, and then we can determine, because one way or another, I feel that we need to vote on it tonight, because if indeed we do end up with February 18th, we need to get it done so that people have time to plan.
And we would communicate right away whatever change would be made. That's what we'd be sending that out.
Okay, with that in mind, then I need a motion to move it to an action item, because it's not an action item currently, is it? So I need a motion to move it to an action item.
So move.
Seconded.
All in favor of moving to an action item, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll see this again a little bit later. Moving on, I'm sorry, I'm still trying to get used to this screen here. Moving on to the superintendent report.
All right, I have a few things I just want to share with everyone this week. Some of the things, school board members, you've already gotten in my weekly update, but because we have an audience in the public, wanted to share some things with everyone. So first of all, we are about ready to go with our Hastings Public Schools Hastings tip line, which is in response to a lot of the mental health concerns and concerns of other safety things with students. And so I want to give a shout out to Rachel Larson and Carrie Gore, Andy Lizer, who really have been working with principals in the past weeks to figure out how do we roll this thing out, how are we going to inform staff about it, how do we update parents. And so in the next couple weeks, we expect it to be up and live. And essentially what it is it's a confidential way for someone to anonymously or give their name to either report something that they've seen, whether it's safety, dealing with safety of themselves or safety with someone else. We've taken this from the likes of Minnetonka, Anoka Hennepin, Stillwater, Roseville, North St. Paul. They already have this type of a setup going right now. And so it's an online form that's posted on the district website and then also the school web pages. Any reports that are there, they will go to a separate set of people or a small set of people that will then be looking through those. Now, these are different than a 911 call. So it'll be very clearly noted that if this is truly a 911 situation, you need to be dialing 911. These are for, you can imagine this being something where a student doesn't feel comfortable going to an adult and saying, this is happening to me at school, or the like of that. This is a safe way, a comfortable way for them to report it and for staff to automatically get it and then be able able to do something about it. Like I said, other districts have been doing this and have found great success with it. It's one of those response items, and how do we work to help students feel safe at school and be in a position where they can report things that they feel they need to report, or anyone for that matter. Doesn't even have to be just students. So anyway, I want to kind of give that information because that will be coming. You'll be hearing more about that in the coming weeks. Like I shared before, we've met with our Quality Steering Committee twice now. So this is a group of administrators across the district and the teacher group. This serves as our meet and confer, but it's really set up in a way that we can proactively come together and problem solve what we think we need to do to make things just work better. And the topics are, it could be anything. So for example, our last meeting, we talked about what do we do, how do we respond to, how do we do things differently with the amount of increased behaviors that we're seeing in classrooms, right? So it's one of the big concerns we have right now, not unique to Hastings, it's in every district. We've got students who still are behaving much younger than they are in years, and that presents a lot of different issues that we have in classrooms. And so it's ways for us to discuss and figure out between administration and our teachers, what do we do? How do we want to handle this? The other one is, the topic we talked about is just figuring out how do we streamline what's on our plate? You know, with all the things that we've got going on, some of the unintended consequences of online and working to be more communicative is the increased use of technology. And so for those people that's not their go-to, that becomes an additional task for them. Even though it's better for students and families, it's still one more thing that staff have to learn how to do and become proficient at. And so all of these little things just become more and more and more. And so how do we figure out ways to say, well, I don't need to do this anymore? So those are just a couple examples of what this group is about, trying to figure out how might we do stuff differently. We've received our first shipment of KN95 masks for staff, so that we have a system set up where those masks will be in staff mailboxes every Monday, so staff will get that. We also have qualified for our statewide shipment of K95 masks, so we'll be seeing those as well. We are working currently with technology to get going on the 2022-2023 move, where if this year, if you remember, when we went to one-to-one, we had to utilize some of our existing technology for students. So we have students that have the older technology. So we've now been able to place the order and get on the first cycle of replacement technology for students. In addition, Missy Williams is working with staff to go through buildings and figure out what is the best classroom set of technology that we need to move into next. So you'll remember that this was a board discussion about bond dollars. We have bond dollars that are set aside for technology. So I just want everyone to know that we are in the midst of working through all of those processes and putting that into action. And then just an update that it is almost February, and that means we are right around the corner from staffing. So January is registration at the secondaries, and February, the end of February, begins the staffing process and figuring out who goes where, what do we need, where do we need to make adjustments, and it's a very large process that really takes February and March to get through. With regard to that, we mentioned Mike Johnson earlier, and we all know at this point in time that he's retiring. And congratulations again, since he's still in the audience. And now that we've made the turn to almost second semester, the questions, if people haven't heard, is what's the plan for the high school? And so we have worked with the high school administrative team, and we will be moving Scott Doran, one of our current assistant principals, into the interim principal role. Our plan is to then slide Trent Hansen over from the athletic director into an assistant principal role, so he'll be able to see both. And then recently we've asked, and it's been accepted, that Pete McGinnis is going to move from the middle school up to the high school to fill in the interim athletic director role. Our reasoning behind all of these moves and the way that we did them is the priority on keeping people in the system that know our kids and our families, and that really was the first priority. So that's why we've made the switches we've made to get us through the end of the school year, and then we will, in the next probably 6 weeks, begin the process of doing the full search for our permanent principal, our next permanent principal at the high school. Then the last thing I have is just reminding everybody that next week is Snow Week. And so there are tons and tons of activities planned, not only at the high school, but I do want to give a shout out again to our high school staff. Last year's Snow Week was much condensed, if really anything at all. And this year they've really tried to figure out how do we do this so that kids have just one more thing that feels a little bit normal again. And the middle school has picked up on that and is doing their dress-up days and the like as well. And I know there's some things that are happening in other buildings. So I wanted to end on a note that we do have some things that are looking a little more normal, although we're doing them different ways, but trying to keep the traditions going that we've had in Hastings for a long time. And that's it.
Just a question, real quick, Superintendent McDowell. With that, does that mean that we can ask the administrative group to wear pajamas on pajama day?
Like you've said earlier, the school board can do anything.
I just think that would be kind of fun. So that would just really be neat. Anyway, let's move on to the Building Construction Fund project update, please.
Okay, so included in board book is the monthly update on the Building Construction Fund. A few changes from last month. The Tilden deferred maintenance project has been completed. So that was deferred maintenance and roof, again, coming in under budget. Another kind of update is we had 4 projects that moved into the in-design phase. So those are the middle school privacy improvements, the entrance security improvements, high school parking lot improvement, and middle school storage building. So those are all kind of being worked on right now. And then later tonight, we have 2 bids that are up for being awarded. Those are the middle school, no, I'm losing my spot, sorry. We have 2 that'll get awarded later tonight, and those, I don't know. Bob, can you help me? Do you have them handy? I have them too, sorry. Yep, the middle school privacy improvements and the high school privacy improvements. And then we had a bid opening earlier this week for the middle school track, and that will come to the board in February. And then we also have one more bid opening next week. That will be for the high school lighting project. That's part of the deferred maintenance. And then that high school parking lot improvements.
I'll just add in there, reiterate that we have really lucked out with our projects and our bidding process that we continue to come in under what the projections were, and that is going to really help us with our technology later on. If you remember when we went through budget adjustments, part of the decision for the board was contingency we'll use to make sure we get the classroom technology stuff taken care of across the district if we can.
Thank you, Jen. Are there any questions, for Jen?
I'm curious about what the water cooler projects are. There's one for Tilden in the middle school for $182,000. And then there's another line item, it's McAuliffe deferred maintenance, and the water coolers are on the same line for almost $337,000.
So the water coolers are like the water filling stations for bottled water that the students and staff use. Depending on what other projects we had going on at the building, sometimes they were separate and sometimes they were combined with other projects that were already happening.
Thanks. It's a lot of money on water. So I'm just curious, do we know how many of these we're putting in and kind of what the strategy is with how we came up with these numbers?
Well, everything that's on the list right now, it went through the facilities committee. I don't know, Lisa, if you want to speak to that, but any of the projects that are in process are projects that were brought forward from the facilities committee to the board, and that they arrived at that through conversation with building principals, through facilities, through what was deemed as priorities at the time. I will point out that while it does seem like a lot of money, they're drinking fountains with the bottle fill stations is what they are. And that's why they're as expensive as they are, because they require not only plumbing, but they require electricity. The benefit is our students can have their own water bottles in buildings and have that with them all the time. I don't know if there's anything else to add about the water stations.
Yeah, there is no way I'm going to remember the number at each site. I'm not even going to speculate on the number at each site. But I do know that it came out of a community engagement process when we were initially identifying the bond. And we were doing 1 or possibly 2 a year using grant funding from Alina. Was a partner a number of years ago to get a couple sites with them. And when we came in and said, we need to be in a better place. Fortunately, we had many of them done prior to COVID, so we could actually have bottle filling as an alternative. But we either replaced or eliminated all the old school drinking fountains, like the ones that they used to have at Pinecrest. You know, the ceramic ones with the tilt, they don't exist anymore. And in many cases, they were partnered with other plumbing projects, minor plumbing projects, or running of electrical. So we felt like it was appropriate use, and it rose out of the community development process.
Thank you.
What is the high school privacy 2.1 million improvements for?
Your mic, Jen, please. Thank you. You're on.
They're adding some privacy showers and restrooms. And there's multiple locations.
What is the reason behind doing this? I see this can be either discussed here. I had requested it be pulled out of the consent agenda for this purpose because it's a lot of money, obviously. It's almost $2.5 million. What is the reason that we're spending $2.5 million for these improvements?
For the high school privacy improvements, the high school privacy improvements, anything dealing with improvements came out of the original bond as far as what the board was doing with that. I think it's also, not having been here at the time when that stuff came through, I think it's in line with what Noka Hennepin was dealing with in terms of lawsuits with not having privacy bathrooms for students. And it's something that I think is more commonplace than not in school buildings as we're moving through time.
What is a privacy bathroom then? Aren't all bathrooms?
No, they're not. So typically the bathrooms that probably all of us went through school with that have multiple stalls in them, whether they're male or female, those are called gang bathrooms because they've got multiple stalls in them. That's not considered a privacy bathroom. Privacy bathroom would be a bathroom that is similar to what you have at home. There's various versions of it where it's a single bathroom that you would consider maybe a staff bathroom as a privacy bathroom in a hallway. Other ways that they're set up is there's a common sink in the area, but the bathrooms themselves are individually doored off. There's a variety of different styles of bathrooms that are considered privacy bathrooms depending upon the location that they can be put into.
And then to extend that into where it's used in a locker room setting, and an example would be here, it's where it's already been completed at the middle school. I don't know what the appropriate plumbing term is, but previously there'd be a stack with like 5 shower spigots sticking off of it, and that was considered the team locker room showering space. And that's not a common practice, and it is a thing that it has brought some school districts into lawsuits for not providing privacy during those opportunities. So they've moved to a single stall shower that has a door that can close. The athlete can change in there, they can shower and change in there, and then hop out and have complete and total privacy during that time. And this also brings me looping back. It's not specific to this project, but we all like to say the new high school, and we all probably know people that live in town that went to the other high school, which we're currently sitting in, but it's not the new high school anymore. Yeah, it's not the new high school anymore. This is common current design practice. And we're in a place where, at 20 plus years, it's time to make these investments.
I have one concern with privacy. I've heard from multiple students that we have some issues in Hastings with drug use and alcohol use during the school day. And adding more private spaces concerns me a bit.
I can appreciate that piece, and part of the way the design on this is that it will actually allow a different type of supervision that's probably a higher level of supervision. So instead of a gang type bathroom where a student enters a room with maybe half a dozen other students in a stall type bathroom with no staff oversight, because it's probably not best practice to send a staff member into that type of bathroom for oversight. You move, I don't know if you've been to Aldrich Arena, that's the one that strikes me that I've been to most recently, where like as you enter each bathroom, the door is visibly available. There's like a half wall with a sink on it, and then behind that is the bathroom. So you can enter that bathroom, but a staff person can be monitoring from the hallway and seeing who's going in and out. And it's not like a gang goes into the gang bathroom and takes it over for vaping or whatever the case might be.
So now you got to hire staff to monitor that, or are you going to just make random staff have to monitor that?
Staff already monitors it.
I think staff are currently expected in most cases to be out in the hallway watching what's going on and providing oversight. And this is a thing where they can actually see an area that's not currently seen.
I, much like Carrie, have heard those same exact reasons, that there's inappropriate things going on right now. So adding more abilities. How many are we adding to each school, or area? Or is it how many for men or women, or?
Depends upon the site. I don't have the drawing in front of me, but it depends upon the site, because a building under code can only have so many. As we retrofit, they can only have so many single drains. So like for the middle school here, the design I think would add four boys and 4 girls in the one drawing, if I think off the top of my head. The high school is a little bit different. The privacy locker room is different because there's a balance between the bathrooms, the showers, and how many lockers we need. So it really just depends upon which site is at. They try to match it 1 for 1 as best that they can. So if there's 4, for example, if there's 4 stalls now, they figure out how can they fit 4 bathrooms in there.
And also, just as a side note, also a big part of this movement that's happened over quite a bit of time, and we're playing a little catch up, is a lot of it also has to do with the kids and where they're at with their mental and emotional well-being. And it's just, some kids are better positioned to be in that private situation as opposed to the others, which, led to any number of other issues when it was in a gang situation, be a shower, bathroom, whatever it happens to be. Just a side note to one of the reasons that all these things are being developed and put out in place into the schools, and not just the schools, but other public spaces as well. Just a side note, a little bit more background. And I have lost my screen. Give me 1 second. Thank you. Is there anything else in Building Construction Fund project update? That'll come back. It'll circle back, Carrie, as part of the action item. It's pulled out, so we can get to it then, too, when we talk about the vote. Let's move to student enrollment, please.
Actually, sorry, I have one more question.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Tilden asbestos. What's going on there?
I believe, is the Tilden asbestos under the...
So there was some asbestos identified at Tilden that initially in the bond was for about $18,400, and that's one of them that over time there's some additional costs there that we've identified we'll take out of health and safety. And I don't have all the specifics with me, but there is work to be done there.
Is that place marked off so staff or kids don't go, or where is that exactly?
Without having Cam here, I don't know exactly where that is right now. We can get that for the board. I know that the asbestos spots, I think, were under stages the crawl space under where the stage is, off of the gymnasium. Under there's, I think am I saying that right, Carrie?
It's above the stage in the crawl space.
Oh, it's the crawl space above the stage. So if it's just the crawl space, then it would be not accessible to people. But we can get those drawings. I know they're taking care of it. That's why it's on here.
Thank you. Now I'm done.
Oh, no, hey, no worries. That's what we're here for. No, it's a good question. That's what we're here for. Student enrollment.
All right, as we look at the enrollment from December to January, there was a decline of about 24 kids. We're still within about a range of 30 adjusted pupil units of the budget. So at this point, it's kind of what we had expected. If we look at it compared to last year, January at this time, it was minus 48 students.
Any questions for Jen on student enrollment? Okay, we're going to move to our action items then. The first thing on our action items is the consent agenda with obvious items pulled out. So we're only left with a couple of things in the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve that consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of the consent agenda as it's now set up, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Please record that as a 6-1 vote. Items for individual action. Donations is first on here. If you don't, we've got the Chromebook here. We just need to read a resolution for the donations that came in.
Your battery and your microphone's back?
Thanks, Carrie.
All right. I, Becky Beisel, introduce the following resolution and move for its adoption. Whereas School Board Policy 706 establishes guidelines for the acceptance of gifts and donations to the district. Whereas Minnesota Statute Section 465.03 states that the school board may accept a gift, grant, or device of real or personal property in ordinance with the terms prescribed by the donor only by the adoption of a resolution approved by 2/3 of its members. And whereas the referenced donations in the district's 200 donations report from October 2021 to December 2021 have been generously donated. Can I get a second to the motion?
Second.
Lisa Hedin duly seconded the motion for adoption of the foregoing resolution. Voting in favor of the resolution, I'll do a roll call. Brian Davis.
Yes.
Stephanie Malm.
Yes.
Becky Beisel, yes. Carrie Tate.
Yes.
Carrie Tate says yes. She changed microphones with me. Mike Reese.
Yes.
Lisa Hedin.
Yes.
Jessica Dressley.
Yes.
Therefore, be it resolved by the Hastings Public School District School Board to greatly accept these gifts.
Easy for you to say.
Right?
Thank you very much for all of you that have donated, and your generosity is greatly appreciated always within our school district. Thank you again. Our next item for action is a temporary pay rate change recommendation for teachers.
All right, so essentially what we have here is a recommendation to make two changes in how we're paying teachers in substitute pay. And it's really due to, like we've talked before, it's due to the increase in our staffing absences, the ability to secure enough substitutes to cover the absences. Because as remember, even though we have teachers out due to COVID, we still have teachers out due to everything else that goes on in a normal year. And so that has been increased. And so the recommendation is that we would do an MOU with the teachers union that would, one, provide compensation rate of $34 an hour, so consistent with the rate that's in their current Appendix B, for covering a colleague's classroom for teachers required to add half or more of the students from another teacher's classroom when we can't secure a sub. So what that means is if Jessica has to go home, her class gets split in half. I then take on half of her kids, Lisa takes on the other half of her kids. We would now be paid at the same rate as if we were subbing. So we'd get that $34 an hour. It would be increasing that for taking that. That's what that part of this is. The second part is simply increasing the rate of pay for a teacher who subs on their prep from $34 an hour to $50 an hour. Again, the reason for this is to, one, acknowledge the fact that a teacher is giving up their prep time in the day, and two, provide some additional incentive to make it a little more worthwhile for teachers to sub during their prep time and get paid a little higher rate for doing that. It also helps us out, quite frankly. There's an option that some teachers take, which is called comp time, and which is a great option. However, it also is something that just pushes the can down the road. And so one of the ways that we believe we can address that is making it, again, a little more incentivized to take the money to sub rather than the comp time, because it, as a district as a whole, that does help us out. So those are the two. Again, it's increasing the collapsed classroom, it's called, to a full $34 an hour for a teacher who takes half that, and the other is to raise from $34 an hour to $50 an hour for a teacher who subs on their prep. So just because we went through this a little bit earlier, you could easily split these two things up and take them individually now, or you could take them both at the same time. It would be up to however you would like to do it.
Yeah, that would simply take a motion if you wanted to split them out.
What is our current sub rate?
$34 an hour.
So that's what subs make. So if, in that case, you took half of her class and Lisa took the other half, you both are making 34? So
17 now. So now we split the 34.
Got it. And what's the total that you're estimating for the year then?
Total.
That it would cost an extra to do that, like with the increase from the 34 to 50?
Do you have that?
Teachers or classes? Do you have a breakdown per school? And is anybody going to take those classes? Pick it up? Is it a first come, first serve for the teachers? Is there like a rotating list that says like, okay, Jessica was out, so now it's Carrie's turn if she wants to. If she doesn't want to, then mine. And
yeah, so we can take a question at a time. So first, what do we anticipate the cost?
So I'm estimating the cost increase to be $17,850 for increasing that rate of pay from the 34 to the 50.
And that'll be a more significant cost than the collapsed classroom, because in doing some checking since we came back from break at the elementary level, give or take a couple days, because it depends upon when I got the information. But let's call it from January 3rd up to this week, give or take a day. At elementary, we've had 54 times where we've had a teacher that's needed to sub on a prep, and we've had 10 collapsed classroom situations. Middle school, we've had 215 times a teacher has had to sub on their prep since the third of the year. And the high school, we've had 29 times where a teacher has had to sub on their prep, but then 37 times where they've been subbing where either they were on a duty or, for example, a band teacher might have lessons that hour and sub instead of giving lessons. So definitely the estimate that Jen gave for the $17,000 is the most significant of the expense that would be incurred. And with that, there's a couple different options with that right now, we set aside money every year in the budget to cover substitute costs. So we could take money out of that substitute cost. That is the most simplistic way for us to do it from a financial and payroll piece because we already have all the teachers set up in the system in terms of coding and how that works. We could also take this additional part, so the $17, we could take that out of ESSER dollars. It's a qualifying expense. However, the trade-off is that we'll put an extreme burden on our payroll people because it's coming out of a different code, which means we have to set everybody up in that code as well. And then every time it happens, it has to be adjusted for the normal code they're paid as a teacher and an ESSER code that they're paid as a teacher, because all those numbers need to jive when Jen does the audit as we move forward. So our preference would be that because it's only an estimate of 17,000, I know that sounds big on its own, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not. We'd prefer that it would come out of the substitute pay until such time we would need to use ESSER dollars.
So I know we're down a lot of staff and jobs. So with the 17,000, are we the budget kind of evened out with all those job openings that we're not filling? So it's really not affecting our budget too much?
Yeah, when I looked at this, I looked even just at the sub budget, and by putting the 17,000 in there at this point, I'm still thinking we're going to be under budget by about 50 to 80,000. It's hard to predict what the rest of the year is going to bring, so it's just estimates, but I feel confident that it can fit within that subbing budget, yes.
That's a great question, Becky, and Jen, your estimates have been very good in the past, so I feel comfortable with that.
Is that from the most recent contract or the change that might happen?
Right now, everything is in play as if that contract is valid. We've made all the payroll shifts.
And there was no change with that $34 an hour.
I'm sorry, Lisa, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to make a motion to advance the recommended temporary changes to supplemental pay rates for teachers as of the 26th of January note.
Second.
We take it to a vote now. All of those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Those opposed? That's 5-1. Chairman Davis abstains.
Do we then need to do a separate vote for how we're going to pay for this? Out of the ESSER or the substitute?
If the board wants to, I suppose you absolutely could if you wanted to make sure that it was clear. Otherwise, you can give us direction administratively on it where you want to take it out of. The hard part there is that you get into that gray area of taking a straw poll, which you really can't do. So if it's something, I would say this, if it's something where at least one board member is concerned where we take the money out of to pay for it, we should probably add an additional action item, which it can be added with, it just has to be, I believe, at least a 2/3 vote to get it on the agenda at this point in time.
I will have an issue with that, so I would want that to be a separate action item.
So then I just recommend make a motion for it and do it that way. That way it's clear.
I move that the funds for the additional, you took this highlight off the top, sub-pay, I'm going to call it that, be taken out of the sub-pay portion of the current budget.
Seconded.
Fair enough. Just had to take a straight vote, right?
Discussion.
Oh, that's right. We need discussion first. Any discussion around what the proposal is, please?
I agree with taking it out of the sub and giving them the money.
And I disagree. I feel for the payroll folks, but I think that when we have an opportunity to use ESSER dollars, I think we should, especially when considering, like the budget stuff that was done in December, for example. I mean, we were looking for $60,000 to cut and this kind of stuff. And although, the $17,000, $18,000 doesn't seem like a lot, I think it, obviously everything adds up.
Yes, sir.
I jumped ahead. The motion was to add an action item, seconded. That one, we need to vote to get that on the agenda as an action item. Then we can continue the discussion. My fault.
I did think it was the other way around. I'm sorry, parliamentary procedure, I thought it was the other way around. Fair enough. So we just need to vote to get the motion as an action item, then we can continue the discussion. So all in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chairman Davis abstains again. Now, Carrie. Sorry, hear you loud and clear. Got it. Got it. Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I appreciate that that's true, that we're, per Jen's insights, we're going to come in under the existing sub-budget anyway, and the additional $17,000 from ESSER, I think, would create a staffing challenge that's not necessary to create, and so we're already going to come in under budget, and I am fully comfortable that we have full expenditure of ESSER identified. So I would support taking it out of the supplemental, or the just standing sub-pay. And that's why I made that motion that way.
I agree.
Okay, I didn't know whether you had anything to say or not, but I wanted to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak.
Yep.
Okay, so you agree with which, Lisa? Or,
That it should come out of the existing sub-pay. I don't want to make anything harder for Jen than, I don't want
fair
to
enough.
create any extra work.
Fair enough.
Yep.
So Becky's weighed in. Stephanie, you have not said anything.
Nothing to add. I agree. It should come out of the sub-pay.
Okay, with that in mind, then I need to have a vote on the motion for it to come out of the current sub-pay budget. All those in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? 2, 4 to 2 vote. Chairman Davis abstains. All right, let's move to graduation requirements.
So this is the 613 that we talked about as a second reading, so it's just on there as the formal vote to make changes as we discussed.
I make a motion to approve, or is that right?
Do I have a second to that?
Seconded.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. This was a pullout from the consent agenda, I do believe. Am I correct? On the Middle School Privacy Improvement Project? Yes. Okay, we're back to that again. As I said, it would circle back. So now we're back to the privacy improvement projects. I need a first and a second, and then we can discuss after that, but I need a motion.
So move.
Second.
Now, any discussion on that?
I am just, it's a lot of money. So I just wanted to talk through it before we, just approve it in a consent agenda. So can I get some, just an overview of what all of this is for, the change order? I mean, I assume that they are tied to lines in here, but I didn't understand exactly how that was broken out.
So this one is this isn't a change order, this is the bid that came through for the privacy. So you'll see on, this is a matter of formality with the board. So when the board has approved a project through the bond and we get through and finish the design phase of that, and then it is ready to go to bid. When it goes to bid, we're required by law to follow bid law processing. And so you'll see on page 2, the explanation of the 4 firms that bid on this project, which is outlined in page 1. And then you will see on page 1, about a third of the way down, that our work with Wold, one of the things they do is they review all these bids for accuracy and to make sure the scope is correct. And then they work with us to make a recommendation to contract with the low bid. And so that's what you see here is the acknowledgement of that Wold Architects has gone through this for its legitimacy. And then, again, by law, you're seeing what the 4 bids were and how that works. Anything you need to add, Jen, to that?
Just on this one, we did have one contractor withdraw their bid. They included a letter in here, but they had a calculation error in it, so they were actually the low bidder, so they withdrew. So then we went to the next lowest bidder.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? With no further discussion, I'm going to hold a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? You get all that, Becky? Okay. We're moving on to the high school privacy improvements now. I need a motion, please.
So move.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on high school privacy improvements?
Just wondering if there's any specific verbiage that needs to be brought out into the public. Anything unique, whatever. Like, I mean, she mentioned somebody withdrew from the bid or anything,
yeah, sure.
anything unique like that anyone would need to be aware of.
And look, I didn't think there was anything on this one.
No, there is not, but this one is actually in 2 phases, so this is kind of the first phase of it. So you'll see in the future, it'll come through again with a bid for the second phase.
So it's in 2 parts.
Say that again?
So it is in 2 parts. That's good to know.
Thank you.
I will point out it's amazing that we got 13 bidders, which shows that, I mean, it's a really competitive. I was personally concerned about this one because the supply chain issues and the high number of fixtures in this piece. We got a really, really competitive bid group, and we still came in under our budgeted amount. So I was very happy about that.
Nothing better than being on budget. So with that and no further discussion, can I get a motion to approve, please? I'm sorry, I'm voting. All in favor, please say aye. I apologize.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. We are moving to bills payable now. Again, here I need a motion and a second, and then we can discuss the bills payable.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on bills payable?
The only reason I wanted to pull this out, I've never looked through the details of bills payable. So just wanted to ask the question, is there anything unique or, that should stand out that requires some attention or just a note? And then just curious if there are any concerns with January so far as well.
Jen, that would be you. Anything out of the ordinary or anything that jumped out at you?
There is not in this month, no. It's very standard. It's our typical bills payable. We do provide a lot of detail. You see every check on here that we've issued, and they kind of go by bank account and fund. So I know it's a lot of information, but there is nothing that I think needs to be highlighted.
Thanks.
I will say, I mean, it's an overwhelming number of things. I think what's always interesting to look at, and the piece I like, is up near the top, Jen, where you see the budgeted amount by category, and then the expenditure for the month and the expenditure to date. I don't know what page that's on, but I always find that one that's kind of a nice touch point that helps me see. Now, some things you do spend, it's not a continuous spend, and it does look a little imbalanced, but that's always a nice checkpoint.
Yep. So that's
out of
the
a very
cover.
complex document.
That's the cover page, page 1. It'll show what we've budgeted, what each month, what we spend, and then what the year-to-date is, and what the remaining budget is. And I watch that very closely. There's some expenses, that are paid in different months, so it's not, you can't always compare it exactly to the previous year, but I do watch it very closely to ensure that it's pretty consistent.
Thank you.
So with the commentary done, all those in favor of bills payable, approving bills payable, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. That circles us back to asynchronous learning days. Again, I need a motion and a second, and then we can discuss.
So move.
Second.
Discussion, please.
So we are discussing, the 2 days, right? That's the motion.
Yes, that's the one on the table, correct.
Thank you.
I would just say to reference back to the conversations that I've been able to have with other districts, or at least listen to, because there's, commonly 30 to 50 people on there. Adding 2 days is well within, if not slightly under, the approach that other districts are taking.
And after hearing all of the teachers that are giving up their prep time, just since the first of the year, I would support these 2 days.
Do we know, I'm wondering if this is kind of out the window. I know usually there's supposed to be students in school so many days per state law. I think that kind of went out the window last year and whatnot probably, but do we know where our days in school at this point are tracking to that metric?
Yeah, we're in good shape there, and because we're doing these as asynchronous days, we can still count them as the days on the calendar.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on this? Okay. All of those in favor of the addition of the asynchronous learning days, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. We're moving to change orders now. Change order number 1, Weber Incorporated. There's a description in your board book for that and what the ad is. Jen, do you want to elaborate a little bit on this?
Yeah, I sure can. So we work with Wold to manage these projects, and they help us with all the bid documents. Occasionally, there's things that have either changed or that weren't noticed at the time the bid documents were done. So then they issue these change orders. So this one in particular is McCullough Deferred Maintenance. The biggest cost on there is modifications to the electrical requirements for those water coolers. So electrical power outlets needed to be added in order for those to be functional. If we look at kind of back to the building construction fund spreadsheet, even with this change order, we'll still be within the overall budget for that project.
So you said that the water coolers were adding that because they needed to be plugged in?
The water coolers require electrical, so that's...
And that wasn't part of the original budget or plan?
That's correct. It's not something that Wold identified. There was electrical that came close, is my understanding, but once they got into the wall, it was identified that it didn't have what it needed.
I think that's... Go ahead, Lisa.
I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. So for as painful as it is, because I would say 93% of I'm making that number up, 93% of the change orders we see are ads. That contingency is frequently around 15% in the construction industry and in these big projects like that. And so for Jen to say, yep, we're doing this ad, this is a 5.6% ad on top of the project. So we are still within our contingency amount. We do have a certain degree of celebration when we ever see one that causes us to save some money, but it's not as common.
Every now and then there are some saves in there, but what we focus on the most is the fact that we're managing to stay within the budget, because of course when this thing was originally bid out, there was contingencies built in, because they know things come up when you get into the walls and there's just things you don't know are going to come up when you start digging around, especially in older buildings. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the change order number 1 for Upper Incorporated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. The second change order is Construction Results Corporation. Looks like there's just one piece here, a sliding transaction window. I believe that was at the high school. Am I right about that? Yep.
Yes, that's correct. They added a window on the student side of that greeter desk.
I can add a little color to this. This is important because if you've been in the vestibule, the security vestibule, what happens is there becomes a traffic jam there. All these kids trying to get their stuff. The kids are leaving. Kids are getting their passes. And the second window now allows them to come on the secured side, get their pass, get it wherever they have. Maybe a lunch got dropped off. I've dropped off a few lunches. So the second window is very helpful in creating a flow that doesn't create a log jam within the vestibule.
I always appreciate color commentary at a school board meeting. It's nice to have that support.
It's just that I saw the movie before the sliding window and after, and I can tell you it is a vast, vast improvement to where we were. Any other discussion or color commentary? Okay. All in favor of the Construction Results Corporation change order, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. This is the last change order and actually the last piece of business for the night. This is the Jorgensen Construction Incorporated change order, and the items are listed there in your board book for an add total $6,687. Jen, is there anything you can add to the whys or wherefores of that one? Because I have no color commentary on this one.
This one was related to the kitchen. There was some modifications as part of their deferred maintenance project to the kitchen, and some changes had to be done with the hood and some of the appliances, so this kind of encompasses all of that. You'll see there is a deduct, but then there's also some adds.
I like that deduct. It's $11,000. That's a good deduct. Is there any further conversation on change order number 1, Jorgensen Construction Incorporated? All right, with that, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries. The one on Wednesday? Yeah. So, in our conversation with future meetings, we've got that listed here in board book. Finance committee, oh my goodness, this is small. I'm getting older. Give me a second, I gotta blow this up. That's better. Finance committee's meeting on February 1st, and then any of these meetings, whether it be a committee or whether it be the board, are available on our website. I did want to mention to everyone that, as you know, we have to look at the teacher contract again and re-vote. That meeting will take place next Wednesday. We are going to have another meeting next Wednesday to vote on that again. Prior to that, our new board members will be getting up to speed on the contract so then they didn't have the knowledge base to be able to vote intelligently next Wednesday on that piece. So that is when that will take place. 6 p.m. 6 p.m. right here. With that, I need a motion to adjourn for the evening.
So moved.
Look at you. Do I have a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you for your time, and thank you again for what I consider a great meeting and great collaboration. Thank you.